Decoding Learning Differences with Kimberly and Lavelle, and this episode is Starting the Year Strong. So, it's been a while. For a variety of reasons, I've not been able to put out content, but I really wanted to make time to talk to you guys at the start of the school year. I really want the school year to go well for you. I know a lot of schools are already back in session. Some won't start for another week or so. But whether you're back in or not, you can still use all of this content, so don't think it's too late. So, a few things to keep in mind for a successful school year. These are just some tips that I have. I'd love to know at the end anything else that you think should be included in the list. So first off, introduce yourself and your kid to anyone who isn't already familiar with you, with your kid, with their needs, whatever it is. Make sure anyone not familiar gets familiar. And I'm going to talk more about this. So there's a couple of, ideally you kind of want to meet them in person, but they're really busy. You're probably really busy. Your kid, if they're older, might be embarrassed about the whole situation. So sometimes the first approach is just a really nice letter. The tricky part with letters is there's no tone of voice, and they don't necessarily know your personality with that tone of voice. I had a parent that I worked with for many years. When I was the teacher, the case manager, there was a parent of some kids, and she would write these letters, and the teachers and the administrators would come to me and they'd be so worried, and they thought she was so mad, and they were really afraid of her, and that they thought she was angry and mad and unreasonable and all these things. And every time I talked to her, she was not any of those things. She was very reasonable. She was very kind. She was understanding. She was grateful. She was direct in her emails. They were just direct. And people took that without her tone of voice. They don't know, right? So sometimes you have to add in a lot of fluff in a letter to not make it seem like you're just angry or something, or that you're out to get them already. So in person is kind of better if you have the opportunity, but it's also not necessarily a good idea to call an IEP meeting just to meet them. There are benefits to that, and there are reasons for that, but keep in mind that they are really, really busy. They have a lot of other kids on their caseload. They have only so many days in the school year, only so many days in the first month of school, so it's hard to meet with everybody. But that is also an option at times. And sometimes you can say, hey, do you have a few minutes before or after school? I just would like to meet you in person. If it's not like the whole team, it's a lot easier, and you can also ask for that. And they'll probably give you a day that they don't have a meeting, and they can meet with you for a couple minutes. But do please respect their time. They are very, very busy people, I promise. Stay in frequent contact with any gen ed teachers that your kid is working with. Even in elementary school, a lot of times they'll go to a different teacher for a particular subject, or the other teachers, but sometimes the teachers move between classrooms for certain subjects. So other teachers might be working with your kid, and you want to be in contact with all of them and make sure that all of them know all the things about your kid. So all the gen ed teachers working with your child. All the special ed teachers and service providers, you want to be in frequent contact with them. You want to be in frequent contact with a case manager. It doesn't have to be a big deal kind of frequent contact, but you do want to make sure that they know you're paying attention and that you are open to hear things. You kind of want to approach that. And I'm going to get to more about that at the end, but this kind of the purpose is stay in frequent contact so that they never forget about you and your kid, and they know that you want to know more than having them just do what they think is right. Like, you want to be involved and just kept in the loop for everything. The tricky one to do sensitively without coming across as judging them or assuming bad things is making sure that IEP accommodations and modifications are known by everyone who is working with the kid and are being implemented by everyone who is working with the kid. One of the ways that I recommend doing this is just asking, oh, how is the text-to-speech accommodation working out in math class? Is that working out for him? Does he seem like he's having any trouble with it? And the teacher was like, oh, no, he doesn't really need to use it. Oh. That gives you a clue that they're not really offering it. They're not making sure that there is a time and place for that to be used. But ask the follow-up question of, oh, can you tell me more about that? What do you mean? Why do you say that? Let them really think about it and defend themselves a little bit, because you kind of do want to put them on the spot a little bit. Always kindly, always with openness and curiosity, and listen, because they might say, well, the textbook that we're using doesn't have much text that any of the kids are reading, so it's just not applicable. And when we do the tests online, it's all just math problems. There's no words to read, so your kid doesn't really need the text-to-speech in math class, which would be unusual because usually there are word problems. But listen, be open to it. Say, oh, okay. And compare that and maybe ask your kid how they're feeling about it also. You can also ask your kid ahead of time so that when you go in, you have that question. Like, oh, okay. That's interesting, because my kid was saying that they feel like they're doing badly on the test because they don't know what the word problems say. And then the teacher's like, oh, okay, well, I'll try to. Then they might then start implementing the thing they were already supposed to be implementing. But it's often a faster way to get it fixed than calling a whole meeting and making them feel put on the spot and getting them defensive. And because sometimes then they get into this mindset of, no, the kid doesn't need it. And then you're fighting about it instead of just kind of casually getting them to start using it. Okay. So throughout the school year, you want to be monitoring your child's progress. You want to make sure the IEP's goals are being worked on, that they're still appropriate, and that progress is being made on them. You kind of keep checking in about the accommodations, especially as you talk to your kid about different things and you kind of know their thoughts on whether or not things are happening. But then the goals you're really watching too. So you want to make sure that they are sending you progress reports regularly, which they need to be detailed. They can't just be like, oh, appropriate progress is being made. If that's all it says, then I would ask follow-up questions. Say, hey, can you give me some more data on these goals and how the kid's doing on each of these goals? I'd like to see the scores and what they're doing with you. And because I still have concerns about this at home. I haven't really seen progress in this area, or I'm not sure what that would look like for you versus me. So be open. Again, always open, warm, and firm, which is going to get me to my tips for all of this. All of these things that I'm wanting you to communicate, the people I want you to communicate with, the questions I want you to ask, the frequency I want you to ask it, all of it needs to be with friendly, open. You want to be approachable. You want them to know that you want them to contact you if there's any problems. Maybe you have a kid who's got a little attitude on him, and you know that. Like, you know that they can be a little difficult for some people. Certain personalities especially might have a harder time with them and butt heads more. So you can approach those teachers and say, hey, I know my kid sometimes gives people a hard time. I definitely want to know if that's happening, if there's anything that you need me to talk to my kid about, if there's anything that we should be doing more of at home, if there's anything that's not happening that should be happening. I want to know, all the things. So make sure they know that you want to know these things and that you're open to hearing them. Some of the statements that I've heard from parents that helped me know that it was okay to say certain things was, I know my kid, I know that they're not, they're already several years behind in reading. I'm not expecting them to get to grade level this year, but I want to know how they're doing, but I expect growth, but I have a reasonable idea of what that's going to look like, or something where they were open to, I know this about my kid, or, oh, I know my kid's, very quiet and doesn't really want to participate much. So let me know how that goes, and if there's anything I can do to help support or whatever. The more that parents said, I know this specific thing about my kid, so I know that might be difficult for you, the more I was willing, I shouldn't say willing, but the more I knew that was a parent that does want to hear from me. Because there were parents that I would try to communicate with. I would email them, I would call them, and I would never hear back. And even getting them to show up for an annual IEP was really hard. And I'm not criticizing those parents, but they weren't the parents that I was going to try to keep informed on the day-to-day stuff, because they didn't seem to have the time for it, and they were just wanting us to handle everything. So that's what we did for those ones. And that was more rare in my situation. Most parents were involved and did want to know what was going on with their kids, and they were open to things. And you can also even be a little vulnerable and say something along the lines of, I don't usually get to hear a lot of positive things about my kid, so I'd love it if you let me know when things are going well. Because that is too true in too many situations, where the focus for so long is, this kid's really struggling, or this kid's a behavior problem, or this kid, whatever it is. And people don't take the time to call the parent and say, oh, your kid is so sweet, and they did this great thing for their friend. It's something I always really tried to do, and sometimes I was better at it than others. I was never perfect, but I always tried to reach out to parents and let them know how amazing their kids are. And the kids would get embarrassed. You told my mom! But they also loved it. So it was like, they were a little embarrassed, but they were mostly happy about it, because they knew that I was seeing them and seeing the goodness in them. So I think you can let the team know that you would like to hear the good, that you're open to hearing the problems because you're used to it already and you're expecting it and you're ready for more, but you're also open to hearing, you would like that they also look for and let you know about the good, because it helps. And it's a good reminder to them, because they might need that reminder that their focus sometimes is, this is a problem that we have to solve, and they forget to celebrate the wins that are happening all the time. In all of this, your goal is to get the team to treat you like you are their family, right? You want them to treat you the way they would treat their sister, their daughter, their mother, whatever. Like, you want them to treat you like close family, that if something's going on, you know about it. They are doing everything they can for your kid. They're involving you in all the decisions, so that they are open and honest with you, and they're doing their very best for the kid. And that everyone's on good terms together, right? So that's the goal in what we're trying to do. You want to establish things that you are always around and you're friendly. And one last tip with all of it, I hate to say it, but gifts help. And they don't have to be much, but just those little things, a little cookie that is like packaged and doesn't look like the kid helped make it too much. It depends on whatever, a pencil, whatever. Little things sometimes mean a lot, especially for the case managers, the school psychologists, the service providers. They often are kind of forgotten, and the gen ed teachers get a lot of stuff. Administrators often get a lot of stuff. And the service providers don't get much because all the focus with them is my kid has this problem and you're supposed to help solve it. And so even if you're having a hard time with a service provider, try to warm up that relationship, potentially with a little special treat. Not that you have to, but it's one extra way to butter them up a little. If you want more intensive support about your specific situation, what's going on with your family and your kid, and how to implement all of this very specifically for you and your family, you can reach out to me, Kimberlyn at decodinglearningdifferences.com. I have a bunch of different options available. I keep changing my structure, although I've been with this structure for about a year now, so there's different options, single calls, package deals. So email me if you would like more specific support. Also, quick questions. I'm always happy to answer. Again, Kimberlyn at decodinglearningdifferences.com. And next week, I have some letters that you can use to send to the teachers. They can be used before the school year starts, but it's actually just as good or better after the school year is already started, but early in the year to start sending these kinds of letters. Before the school year starts or at the very beginning, sometimes things kind of get lost because there's so much on the teachers' minds and they don't yet have a clearer connection of this kid, this parent, these needs. Like, they don't have that clear connection. So a couple weeks after school year starts is actually sometimes the better time to send those first communications. So it's not yet too late. And you'll have those next week. If you really need them immediately, go ahead and email me and I will try to send them over to you personally right now. Kimberlyn at decodinglearningdifferences.com. I'm here to help.